pollen. Believe it or not, as we approach November, we have pine pollen, and all that kind of stuff. So, excuse me while I get a quick swig. Well, how about it? Here we are at halftime. If you want to jump in here and you have a comment or have a question about Georgia's big lead over Florida, you can do so. Georgia 28 and Florida 3. The dominating performance by the University of Georgia. Excuse me. Let me give you, pardon me. Let me give you some first half statistics for Georgia. Stetson Bennett having a wonderful first half, 13 of 23, 217 yards and one touchdown, one interception as well. Rushing, Dejon Edwards has rushed for 7 times for 46 yards and a touchdown. Kenny McIntosh has rushed 9 times for 32 yards and a touchdown. Brock Bowers has 4 receptions for 125 yards. And how about that reception that Brock Bowers had when he took it off, or it bounced off the Florida defender's shoulder pad and then his helmet, and then there you go. And that's right. Stetson does have 2 touchdowns. They just updated my statistics. There you go. Darnell Washington, 3 receptions, 47 yards. Kyrus Jackson, 2 receptions for 28 yards. Just a dominating performance by Georgia, as we expected. Georgia up 28-3 over Florida down at TIAA Bank Field down in Jacksonville, Florida. Now, if you'd like to jump in here and you have something you want to share with us, we'd love to have you come in and just give us your comments. Grady says absolutely dominant, and Georgia has been dominant. Georgia looking exceptionally well, obviously. And, the Brad Nessler, Gary Danielson, talking about Georgia just having a superior group of players, and that's obviously true. Georgia just has better players on the field than Florida. Billy Napier, however, is a good coach, and by the way, he's a Georgia boy. And he's been around. He's been successful at different places. And so look for Florida to make some good advancements in the years to come. But right now, what you see on the field is really no competition as far as talent is concerned between Georgia and Florida. Stetson Bennett having just a wonderful first half, throwing for over 200 yards. And Brock Bowers, the catch that he made, it was – it's one of those things. It's one of those things that some years ago when Florida was dominating this series against Georgia, what happened for Florida. But and now things are different, and Georgia is dominating this series in the past few years. And now it looks like Georgia's getting those kind of breaks as well. So Georgia dominating in the game today, 28-3. If you have a comment or a question or something you want to say about the Bulldogs, you can do so. We're trying to find our scores from across the country here. Let's see. We got Oregon is beating California 21-10 at halftime. Kansas State. Is this right? Is that right? Kansas State is beating Oklahoma State 35-0 at halftime. Barry Watkins, my only concern is how bad Nolan Smith is hurt. Now, that is a concern. Nolan Smith, he's kind of like the heart and soul, the quarterback of that defense for Georgia. And from what I understand from the reports that we are getting is, he might have had a stinger, hopefully no structural damage to the shoulder. It just maybe a bad bruise, kind of stinger kind of situation, something like that. But with the score the way it is, he's not going to be back out there on the field, obviously, for this game. And hopefully it's not going to keep him out of the games to come. But, there you go. But we'll hopefully Nolan will be able to go. Tracy says, rest in peace, Coach Dooley. And that has always, been on our minds. Well, that has been on our minds since yesterday when we heard the story of Coach Dooley. I was able to blessed to meet Coach Dooley on one occasion many, many, many years ago. Actually, when I was in high school, he came to my high school here in Georgia, and he made a presentation to our local athletic club. And of course, he was still the coach at the University of Georgia, just really entering into his successful run at Georgia. Oklahoma, the University of Oklahoma had come after Coach Dooley. Oklahoma wanted him to be the coach for the Oklahoma Sooners. And he announced at that particular event that I attended when I was a kid that, you know, that he was not going to Oklahoma. He was going to stay at Georgia, and he got a standing ovation. So there you go. Tracy says upper body. Yeah, you want to be careful with that kind of thing. The fans are worrying about looking ahead wrong, according to Ron. I know, but that's what fans do. That's what we do. We're already looking forward to Tennessee, and and then so that they listen. The coaches and the players, they're not supposed to look forward, but we fans, we can do that, but I get your point, Ron. Absolutely. Kristen says, love my Georgia Bulldogs. And I'm telling you, they look really great today. Um, what can you say? I mean, what can you say? This, I'm always a nervous wreck with these games. I just be honest with you. I had all these visions of Florida coming out and being on fire and really going after Georgia, and it was going to be a tough and tight game. In fact, one of my buddies who's in media made his prediction of a 24-20 win for Georgia, and I was just saying, "Oh man, this is going to be tough." But the big difference between the talent on the field is pretty obvious, pretty obvious. But hey, you still have a half to go in football. That's the way I am. We still have a half to go. I'm not going to relax until we're up like 50 points. Carter is back. Yes, that's good to see. Jalen back out there on the field. He's just a stud. He's a big man in the middle. He the offense has to pay attention to him, and he just clocks things up in there, and you have to account for him. And he's a great talent, and it's good to see him back out there on the field for the University of Georgia. Kristen says Georgia and Tennessee will be a test. Yes, it will. If Georgia maintains this, they'll remain the number one team in the country. Depends on what Tennessee does with Kentucky tonight. Now you say, oh, well, Tennessee will win that game. But Kentucky, in the last few years has really played Tennessee tough. I mean, really, really played Tennessee tough. So, yeah, and that game will be in Knoxville. So you don't expect Kentucky to win, but it's the SEC, and you just never know. Ron says Coach Vince Dooley spoke to our football banquet in Buford, Georgia back in 1965. How about that? Well, he spoke at our athletic banquet in Crisp County. It was right around 1960 something, something like that. And what impresses me about Coach Dooley, he loved Georgia. He just loved Georgia. Actually, he's from Alabama, a graduate of Auburn. And excuse me, by the way, today, before the Auburn game, Auburn Arkansas game, Auburn had a moment of silence for Coach Dooley. Of course, he's a graduate of the University of Auburn. But when he came to Georgia, that was it. He was a Georgia man, just a great gentleman, uh, just a great guy, great family guy, and great coach. What can you say? And he's going to be missed. Kirby with 2 weeks to prepare. Yep. Barry, I was telling my son, we were watching the game on the big screen. I was telling my son, I said, I think Kirby Smart would rather beat Georgia than take 2 weeks vacation on a beach somewhere. I mean, would rather be Florida, rather. I'm sorry. That Kirby would rather beat Florida than take 2 weeks of vacation on a beach somewhere. He really, really loves. Excuse me, beating Florida. Okay. Yes, this game isn't over, but next week will be a good weekend of games. UGA versus Tennessee and LSU versus Alabama. And that's true. That's going to be something. That's the things are beginning to shake out in the SEC. Trip, how you doing, my man? Always good to hear from Trip. Yes, Kristen, Brock Bowers, and Darnell. Oh, Darnell had the ball right in his hands, And McConkey had one right in his hands as well. But hey, you can't catch them all, I guess. Tracy's wanting Kentucky to win over Tennessee. That would be nice. And I tell you what, I was pulling for Penn State today to knock off Ohio State, but things kind of fell apart for Penn State as that game was coming to a conclusion, and Ohio State was able to pour it on. And I sit and watch these games and I make notes and I look at this stuff because I know eventually I'm going to talk about it or something. And I got to tell you, uh, Georgia is a better team than Ohio State. I mean, Georgia's just a better team than Ohio State. Ohio State obviously got talent; they have talent, but you look, Georgia's just a better team. I'm sorry, uh, you know, I have an SEC bias. I admit that. I have a Georgia bias. I admit that. But Georgia's just a better team. A lot is, oh man, a lot is going to be on the line next week. Georgia and Tennessee. By the way, that Georgia Tennessee game, of course, you probably already have heard now, and you don't like it. Um, let's see what we got here. That game's going to be at 3:30. We'll talk about that in a minute. Travis says UGA to cover. Georgia's a 22-point favorite in this game, and yeah, I think it's a pretty safe bet that they're going to to cover in this game. Georgia 22.5-point favorite, I think, over Florida, and I think it's pretty safe to say that, that unless Florida really just kind of has a great third quarter and makes it close, but I think it's pretty safe to say that Georgia will cover in this game. Let's see. We're trying. My producer says pick up the phone and go to this page and look at what's happening there. Okay. Okay. I don't see anything, but you'll send it to me. Okay. Let's see what we got here. Anybody else? Okay. We would. Tracy says we would crush the Ohio State. Hey, she got it right. The Ohio State. Yeah, it irritates them. Don't just call them Ohio State. They're the Ohio State. Florida State beat Georgia Tech today, 41-16. Okay. And Miami beat Virginia. Is that what you want me to look at? Okay. All right. Oh, Oklahoma beat Iowa State. Okay. They're running across some scores. So what do you think now? Here we go to the second half. Any consternation? Anything on your mind about the second half? Can we go at it? Can we go for it? Can we keep going? I think it's pretty safe to say Florida gets the ball first in the second half. Anthony Richardson for Florida. Let's see. What is his stats? Okay. He wants, oh, you want me to look at his stats? I got you. Well, I done lost it now. I don't know how to operate this stuff. Anyway, Richardson got hurt and he's limited in his mobility. I don't know if that's going to make a lot of difference or it would have made a lot of difference. I mean, Gary Danielson, he makes a big deal out of Richardson not being able to run and not being mobile, and that's taken away a lot of the offense from Florida. Travis says Georgia's going to intercept when Florida gets the ball. Okay, well, I hope so. That'd be good. I tell you what, I'd love to see. I'd love to see a sack Richardson more. And I know they run kind of a fast-paced offense, and you don't get a lot of opportunities to sack. Did we have a sack in the first half? Did we have one? I know we had some hurries and tackles for losses. I don't know if we had a sack on Richardson or not. So it's 28-3. Georgia leading over Florida. Florida says it's the 100th meeting. And the Georgia stat book says it's the 101st meeting. We can't even agree on that. But anyway, by the way, we were, the SEC announced on Monday that the Georgia-Tennessee game will be a 3:30 kickoff on CBS. So you'll have the same crew working the Georgia game next week on CBS. You'll have Brad Nessler, Gary Danielson, and I forgot who the young lady is who's on the sideline. So you'll have that same crew working this game at 3:30. And most probably, if things hold to serve if Georgia holds on to number one, and if Tennessee holds on, it should be like 1-3 or 1-2. You never know. Tracy says it should be a night game. I know. I know. But here's the contract that the SEC has with CBS. CBS gets the first pick of any SEC game, and then the other games can go to ESPN and the SEC network and that kind of thing. And contractually, CBS can only have one night game for the SEC with the SEC, and they've already had the night game, and that was Alabama and Texas A&M, and they choose that game at the beginning of the season, which doesn't make a lot of sense. But the contract with CBS, the SEC and CBS is coming to an end. Is it next year? I think it's next year or the year after that, and so things will change. But the Georgia Tennessee game will be at 3:30 in Athens. It'll be a monster game. It'll be the biggest game in Sanford Stadium, maybe in Sanford Stadium history. I think there's one other occasion when at Sanford Stadium in Athens, Georgia and some was playing somebody, was like 1-5 or something like that, a top 5 matchup. I forget what year that is, or what game that was. But it'll be a monster thing. Now we'll be reporting live from Athens next Saturday, a pregame. We're going to try to find a location that will host us for the halftime and for the postgame. That's going to be a monster. That's going to be a monster game. And here on Dogs on Demand, we'll have several updates this week. We'll have the opportunity to talk with Rusty Manziel from 247 Sports this week. He's going to give us a preview of the Tennessee game as well. And by the way, check us out. Now, we're Dogs on Demand. We're on Facebook. We have over 30,000 followers on Facebook. We have over 121,000 followers on Instagram. It's huge. We're dogsondemand.com, those Facebook and Instagram. Then you can go to YouTube, and you can find all of our podcasts there and all of our conversations there. And then you can go to our website, dogsondemand.com. We got it covered. By the way, one of the partners in our what we do here on Dogs on Demand is Champ Bailey. And Champ Bailey was one of 3 former players who were inducted into the Georgia-Florida game Hall of Fame this past weekend. How about that? Our good friend Champ Bailey. And I had his statistics for, he was in that game when Georgia really upset heavily favored Florida team. And Kirby Smart had 2 interceptions in that game. I forget the year. What was that? What year was that? We're looking for it. I'm looking for it. My producer's looking for it. He says, quit talking about this stuff you don't have in front of you. But I know I got it somewhere. Anyway, Champ had a huge game in that back in 1994, I think, or 96 or something like that. Anyway, we'll find it and we'll have it for when the game is over. But Champ Bailey, our good friend, he's a partner in what we do here on Dogs on Demand, and he was inducted into the Georgia-Florida game Hall of Fame. And in fact, here at halftime, they're honoring him, and so that's good. And Champ also will be inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame this year as well, and we'll have him on one of our podcasts as well. So check us all out. And by the way, Southeast Mortgage is a good friend and helps us a lot here on Dogs on Demand. When you go to the stadium, Sanford Stadium, you'll see the signage for Southeast Mortgage. And you think, wow, that's a big concern. What are they going to do with somebody like me? Well, listen, they specialize in helping somebody like me-ish people, like you and me. They're great people. They're the official home loan lenders of the Georgia Bulldogs. Here's what they tell me to tell you. When it comes time for you to finance or refinance your home, go to southeastmortgage.com, southeastmortgage.com/UGA. Get the contact information. Contact these folks. Tell them what's happening, what you're doing. And I guarantee, I know these people, they are fantastic. And that's just, listen, that's not just, kind of making something up to try to get you to go somewhere. They're really fantastic people, and they love what they do, and they love helping people, and they're professional. So check them out. Southeast Mortgage, the official home loan lender of the Georgia Bulldogs. And, when you're doing your loan business, they'll talk football with you. What more do you want? Right? What more do you want? Handle mortgage business, money business, and talk football as well. So Southeast Mortgage, great supporter of Dogs on Demand. All right, we're going to get out of here. We'll watch the second half. We'll be here at the end of the game to let you talk about it. Go Dogs. Let's wrap this thing up. All right.